Caitlin Clark is commercially the most popular basketball player in the world right now, so why doesn't she have any commercials? She was supposed to have a signature shoe coming out since she was in college, but she doesn't have one, she's not getting one anytime soon, and they haven't even started making it yet. It's obvious that Nike are ignoring Caitlin Clark. And that's just one of many reasons she regrets signing with the swoosh brand, because this situation is a lot more complicated than people think. So in 2022, Caitlin Clark signed an NIL deal with Nike, which allowed her to make money off her name and likeness while in college. We saw some really good marketing campaigns. For example, they put up a billboard in Times Square saying this was never a long shot, with Caitlin Clark pictured taking one of her long shots. They would put quotes all over the city like Caitlin Clark shouldn't be allowed to play in a boys tournament and that Caitlin Clark is the biggest star in basketball. This right here is absolutely brilliant marketing and it got people excited about what's to come. And from that point onward she has continued to take over the sport. She became the most recognizable college athlete, men or women, in any sport. She drew record attendances all over the country, and by the end of her college career she was a household name, and all the big companies wanted to sign her. Caitlin Clark had a lot of options. Under Armour offered to make her the face of Curry brand, saying she was the perfect fit because of her similar playstyle to Steph Curry. She could have went to Adidas, but instead she signed an 8-year deal with Nike worth $28 million, which comes to around $3.5 million per year. This might sound good, but really long term, this could turn out to be one of the worst sneaker deals of all time, and Caitlin Clark might have got screwed. Watch till the very end and it'll all make sense. The paid partner of today's episode is BetterHelp. You know how they say it's hard to break old habits? The longer we stick to our routines, the harder it can be to adapt and see things differently. That's where I think therapy and especially BetterHelp can be a real game changer. For me, I've always focused on the physical side of things, thinking that exercise and playing basketball will make me feel great. And while it helps, that's only half of it. Being able to talk through what's going on in your head with somebody who listens can really help shift your mindset. It makes you more open to change and helps you see things from new perspectives. If you've been considering therapy, I highly recommend trying BetterHelp. It's flexible, convenient, and works around your schedule. Just fill out a questionnaire and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And if the therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you really connect with. Take a step toward better mental health and click the link in the description, or go to betterhelp.com/DKM and get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/DKM. Anyways, Caitlin Clark is 22 years old, and by the time this deal expires, she will be 30. Her career will almost be over, so she probably won't have the opportunity in the prime of her basketball career to negotiate a better deal. And in comparison to other sneaker contracts, Nike has locked her in long term for the cheap. For comparison, Victor Wembanyama's Nike deal in 2023 was worth $100 million. LaMelo Ball with Puma was $100 million. Zion Williamson with Jordan was $75 million. Even LeBron James back in 2003 signed for $90 million. I understand these are men's basketball stars and the NBA is bigger than the WNBA, but Caitlin Clark is also bigger than the WNBA. She's the most popular basketball player in the world right now. Indiana Fever games this season averaged over 1 million viewers per game. They had more nationally televised games than almost every NBA team. In Indiana, the Fever had a higher average attendance than the Pacers. You could argue that no athlete in American sports history has ever elevated a sport and a league this much and this fast. But had Caitlin Clark not signed with Nike in March of this year and waited 6 months, that $28 million deal could be worth triple, after seeing what she's done and how not just her game, but her popularity is translated from college to the pros. It would be a lot safer for Nike to invest money now because they know what to expect for the next decade. The timing when she signed this Nike deal was difficult. I understand why she did it. When Caitlin Clark signed the deal, she was in college. She might have thought this was the peak of her popularity, and there's all the chance she didn't become the superstar in the WNBA that she has become. What if she went to the WNBA and people didn't care? You have to remember, NBA stars, whether they take the shoe deal or not, are going to be millionaires either way from day one. They will have the opportunity to sign multiple max contracts throughout their career. Caitlin Clark's rookie salary is $338,000. She makes under $100,000 per year playing basketball right now. The highest paid player in the WNBA is Jackie Young. She makes $250,000 per year. Caitlin Clark will probably never make $3.5 million per year in salary from the WNBA, so Clark didn't have the negotiating power that these NBA stars do, and betting on herself would have been a lot riskier because there's no guarantee she would ever see that kind of money on the table again. Basically, she saw an opportunity to secure generational wealth at a young age while being a part of the biggest sportswear company in the world, and she took it. But Caitlin Clark selling herself short doesn't explain why Nike are refusing to capitalize on their investment, because they did it again. Just like they got Jordan, then Tiger Woods, then LeBron, then Ronaldo, now they've got Caitlin Clark. The company's stock is at an all-time low right now. The CEO just resigned. Caitlin Clark is a billion-dollar athlete that they can market and make the face of their brand for the foreseeable future. Everything makes sense, and yet it doesn't. Because when Caitlin Clark's shoe finally does hit the shelves, this will likely be the best-selling basketball sneaker in the country. Every parent will want their daughter wearing Clark's shoe. I also think that because she's a woman and she's different, this shoe has infinitely more potential than anything they could make for Ja Morant or Devin Booker. And yet, instead of capitalizing on this, there has been nothing from Nike. Forget about a shoe, we haven't seen a commercial for Clark since turning pro. She just played in the WNBA playoffs, and instead of wearing and promoting her own shoe, she was wearing Kobe's. They've got her advertising an old product. Why did Caitlin Clark not have a signature shoe ready to start her WNBA career? When LeBron signed with Nike in 2003, they made sure that when he made his NBA debut, he was also debuting his signature shoe. They could have done the same for Clark, and they didn't. And this is just one of many missed opportunities for Nike to capitalize on their most marketable young basketball star. Because of the NIL deal, could have had a signature shoe while in college. That would have been historic. In her record-breaking senior season at Iowa, she could have been wearing and promoting her shoe on a national scale. Think about the NCAA tournament, with 12 million people watching the Elite 8 versus LSU, with 17 million people watching the Final Four with UConn, and 24 million people watching the championship game against South Carolina. These were some of the most watched basketball games of all time. Imagine if Nike had revealed it then, had Clark exclusively wear the shoe during March Madness, and plaster the commercial all over the airlines. It would have been insane. They say Caitlin Clark is the Michael Jordan of women's basketball. In 1984, Jordan signed a deal worth $2.5 million. He had his signature shoe ready on his NBA debut, and in the first 3 years, Air Jordan netted $165 million, and the Jordan brand became a billion-dollar brand in itself. They have an opportunity to replicate something like that with Caitlin Clark, but she won't even have a shoe in her first 3 years. Does Nike not want money? Did Nike just sign her up to stop her from building up a rival company? Would Adidas, Puma or Under Armour squander this opportunity? It doesn't make sense. Why isn't Caitlin Clark a priority for Nike brand? Well, their official reasoning is a lot of nonsense. They say that creating a shoe is a delicate craft, and having to manufacture millions of pairs and have a marketing campaign all takes time and is something that can't be rushed. May I remind you, this is Nike. They have all the resources in the world they need to make this happen in whatever time frame they choose. They've done it before several times. That is not why they are not promoting Caitlin Clark. The real reason they are postponing Caitlin Clark's shoe is a lot more controversial. Because when Clark signed her Nike deal back in April, there was a lot of backlash. People on social media were outraged, and players within the WNBA were annoyed that an unproven rookie who hadn't yet played a WNBA game had secured more money through this sneaker deal than most of them have made in their entire careers. People were outraged that Asia Wilson hadn't got a signature shoe despite being a multiple-time MVP and a 2-time champion. After Clark signed, Asia Wilson cryptically tweeted out a Bible verse that a lot of people thought was a shot at Clark. And then Jameel Hill said that she finds it curious that the WNBA's best player doesn't have a shoe despite having proven to be marketable, suggesting that it was a white privilege thing. Eventually Nike folded, and after all the backlash, just weeks after Clark signed her deal, it was announced that Asia Wilson would be getting a signature shoe with Nike. Now some would say they only did this to please the public, because until now the only active WNBA players who had a signature shoe were Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu. They are both white. Caitlin Clark is also white, and a lot of people were unhappy at the fact that the WNBA's best player who's black doesn't have a shoe while these players do. And for that reason, Nike are prioritizing A'ja Wilson's shoe, which is set to release in 2025, ahead of Clark's shoe that has now been delayed. Because while they know fine well Caitlin Clark is the more marketable athlete and that she will sell more pairs, they are more concerned with falling in line with politics than they are making money. They don't want to be accused of favouring Clark over Wilson because of race. But the truth is, when it comes to selling basketball sneakers, when has race ever really mattered? Michael Jordan has the best selling basketball shoe of all time. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving all have some of the most popular sneakers around. The real reason A'ja Wilson didn't have a signature shoe is because of her position. She's a centre, and it is well known that big men don't sell shoes, because the average consumer is more likely to relate to the smaller flashy guard or fall in love with the high flying dunker than they are the tallest, most dominant and efficient player on the court. Almost everyone would admit that Tim Duncan was a better basketball player than Allen Iverson, but Duncan's shoe flopped while Iverson sold out. People will say that's an outlier because Tim Duncan was a boring personality, but what about Shaquille O'Neal? He's very marketable, he's very popular, and is a fan favourite everywhere he goes. But Shaq couldn't sell shoes, not like Kobe Bryant, and that's why he started selling them at Walmart for $12 a pair. What makes this so interesting is Nike know all of this. They know A'ja Wilson's shoe isn't going to fly off the shelves the way Clark's would. That's why they signed Caitlin Clark before they signed A'ja Wilson. They have decades worth of trial and error and case studies and data that proves what works and what doesn't. But in this case, they're choosing to be politically correct and fair. They're gonna go along with making A'ja Wilson's shoe, they're gonna do it before making Clark's shoe, and once Clark's shoe inevitably outsells A'ja's, then they can turn around and say at least they tried. The reality is though, decisions like this and prioritizing people pleasing over making money is probably why Nike is imploding and their stock is historically low right now. The people want a Caitlin Clark shoe and they're not getting it, all because people will complain and cry about what is fair and what isn't. The truth is that Caitlin Clark's partnership with Nike has been an absolute disaster so far. Not only is she getting absolutely robbed with a terrible deal, she's worth infinitely more than that, but she isn't even getting a signature shoe or any kind of commercials because Nike are scared of getting backlash. This whole situation's ridiculous. But let me know down below in the comments what you think. Should Caitlin have signed with a different brand? If so, who should she have signed with? Share your thoughts and feedback down below in the comments. And on that note, it's DKM signing out until next time, and peace.